It's a warm Sunday evening, March 25th, 2012. Somewhere in Kentucky, 25-year-old William Christopher Todd steps onto a Greyhound bus. Just another traveler, blending in with the crowd. His signature red ponytail standing out in the dim bus station lights. His destination, Tennessee. A simple day trip. Nothing unusual. But what happened next? No one, not the police, not the people he crossed paths with, and definitely not the city of Nashville, could have predicted. Within 9 hours of stepping off that bus, Todd would turn the city into his personal crime playground, racking up a list of offenses so bizarre, so chaotic, that it seemed ripped straight out of a video game. And before the sun had fully risen, Nashville would be left picking up the pieces of one of the strangest crime sprees in recent history. William Christopher Todd wasn't a name that meant much to most people before that night. He was just another guy in his mid-20s, drifting between places with no real direction. But one thing about him stood out: his love for the Grand Theft Auto video game series. Some people play it for fun. Todd, he seemed to take it as a blueprint. On that quiet Sunday evening, he boarded a Greyhound bus bound for Tennessee. The ride was uneventful, filled with tired passengers, road-worn travelers, and families heading to their next stop. At 3 a.m., the bus pulled into Nashville for a scheduled 9-hour layover. Most people would have found a place to rest or waited it out at the station. Todd, he had other plans. Within minutes of stepping off the bus, he was on the move, and the city of Nashville was about to become his personal playground. A haunted house attraction, a law office, a hotel, multiple taxis. Nothing was safe from his path of destruction. What started as a simple layover would become one of the most chaotic crime sprees the city had ever seen. It's just after 3 a.m. Most of Nashville is asleep, the streets quiet except for the occasional taxi and late-night bar stragglers. But for William Christopher Todd, the night is just getting started. Less than 10 minutes after stepping off the Greyhound, Todd stumbles upon the Slaughterhouse, a haunted house attraction that had been entertaining thrill-seekers since 1996. It's closed, dark and empty, an easy target. Without hesitation, he breaks in. No alarms, no witnesses. Just him and whatever he can get his hands on. Inside, he rummages through the attraction, pocketing anything of value. A taser, a revolver, and a shotgun. His arsenal for the night. But Todd isn't just here for weapons. Before leaving, he grabs a Slaughterhouse t-shirt, as if taking a souvenir from his first crime of the night. Then, for reasons only he could understand, he sets the building on fire. Flames engulf the attraction, smoke rising into the night sky as Todd casually walks away, admiring his work. By 3:30 a.m., he's at a nearby bar, waiting outside for closing time. A group of 4 people step out, laughing, unaware of the danger lurking in the shadows. Todd steps forward, gun in hand. He doesn't just demand their wallets. He makes an example. He tases one, pistol whips another, and only then, as they scramble to comply, does he take their cash and credit cards. Now armed and funded, Todd moves on. He breaks into a parked taxi, hotwires it, and speeds off to a 24-hour Walmart. Inside, he casually fills a cart with food, strolling the aisles like any late-night shopper. At the checkout, he swipes one of the stolen credit cards, racking up a $199 bill. He walks out, bags in hand, belly full, ready for whatever comes next. But this is where things take a turn. The destruction, the violence, that was just the beginning. What Todd does next takes his crime spree from reckless to outright deranged. By this point, the Nashville police are starting to piece things together. A haunted house burned to the ground. A group of bar patrons attacked and robbed. But they don't yet know that one man is responsible for it all. And Todd, he's just getting warmed up. Sometime after 5 a.m., with his stolen Walmart haul keeping him fueled, Todd stumbles upon a law office. Most criminals would break in looking for cash, maybe valuable documents. But Todd, he has something else in mind. He smashes through the front door, marches inside, and finds an empty desk. That's when he drops his pants, climbs on top of it, and takes a massive, unapologetic dump right there in the middle of the office. And he doesn't stop there. He picks up his own filth and smears it across the framed law degrees hanging on the walls. Maybe it was a statement. Maybe it was boredom. Maybe it was just Todd being Todd. Whatever the reason, he leaves the office satisfied with his artwork and moves on. At 6 a.m., he sneaks into the nearby Hotel Indigo through a service entrance. He's no longer the man who stepped off that Greyhound bus. Now he's a full-blown home invader. He lets his red hair down and knocks on the door of a first-floor room. A Canadian couple, still half asleep, open the door, expecting housekeeping. Instead, they find Todd, armed and crying. He pushes them back inside, keeping the gun pointed at them. But as he goes through their belongings, something strange happens. According to the couple, Todd was sobbing the entire time. He stuffed $600 in cash into his pocket, but his hands were shaking. His face was streaked with tears. The man who had just terrorized Nashville, who had left a trail of chaos in his wake, was breaking down in front of them. After an hour, he leaves, slipping into a cleaning closet to regroup. He knows his fiery red hair is an easy identifier, so he grabs a razor, shaves it all off, and dumps the evidence in a mop bucket. A new look, a new disguise. He walks out of the hotel, passing right by police officers investigating the robbery he just committed. For a brief moment, it seems like he might actually get away. But Todd is nothing if not unpredictable. He isn't done. Not yet. By 9 a.m., he's back on the streets, carjacking another taxi, flying through the downtown area at reckless speeds. Minutes later, he crashes into a parking garage, but instead of running, he just crawls away. At 11 a.m., Todd hijacks yet another taxi and forces the driver to take him to Opry Mills Shopping Mall, a massive retail complex with 182 stores. But this time, he's not after money. He's looking for a place to disappear, and he finds it inside the mall's industrial cooling system. He stashes his stolen goods under a stock cage and climbs into a giant water tank, submerging himself completely. The only thing left above the water. His nose barely peeking out, just enough to breathe. He thinks he's found the perfect hiding spot, but the police are already closing in. The taxi driver tipped them off, and officers are sweeping the mall. When they reach the cooling system, they notice something odd, water rippling where it should be still. One officer steps closer, looks inside, and sees a nose sticking out of the water. Without hesitation, they reach in, pinch it shut, and pull Todd out of the tank. Soaking wet, shivering, and finally out of luck, Todd's bizarre, over-the-top crime spree is finally over. At the exact moment Todd was being dragged out of that water tank, the Greyhound bus he had arrived on was leaving Nashville, continuing its route without him. The city was left in shock, piecing together the wreckage of his 9-hour rampage. In total, he had committed 11 separate crimes: arson, robbery, assault, fraud, carjacking, burglary, and more. Investigators soon uncovered that Todd wasn't just some random drifter who snapped. He was already a wanted man in Kentucky for theft. It didn't take long for theories to spread about what had fueled his crime spree. His obsession with Grand Theft Auto became a focal point, with many speculating that he had tried to turn the game into reality. But that theory didn't quite fit. Todd wasn't just stealing cars and robbing people. He was tasing random strangers, vandalizing law offices with his own feces, and hiding in mall water tanks. If he was following a game script, it was one that only made sense in his own mind. When the case went to court in June 2013, Todd didn't get the kind of sentence you might expect for someone who tore through a city like a one-man wrecking crew. Despite the sheer number of crimes, his punishments were stacked to run concurrently, meaning he would serve them all at the same time. The result? A 3-year sentence for aggravated robbery, 3 years for arson, 2 years for burglary, and 11 months each for 3 separate assaults. It was a lot of charges, but not a lot of time. And sure enough, in 2016, Todd was released. For a brief moment, it seemed like he might slip under the radar and fade into obscurity. But some people are just wired for chaos. 3 years later, in June 2019, he was back at it. Another crime spree, though this one wasn't as elaborate. He committed another robbery, caused $10,000 worth of property damage, and broke into a home. In April 2021, he was finally sentenced to 8 years in prison for his repeat offenses. But one strange theory emerged from his original Nashville rampage. After the Canadian couple he robbed described how he was crying the entire time, some internet conspiracy theorists latched onto the idea that Todd wasn't in control of his own body. That just like in Grand Theft Auto, he was being played by some unseen force. Someone making his decisions for him while he was trapped inside, powerless to stop it. Of course, there was no proof, no evidence, nothing but speculation. But even with a rational explanation, the crime spree still felt unreal, like something that shouldn't have been possible. And what about Nashville? Life moved on. The Slaughterhouse Haunted House reopened in a new location and remains one of the city's top attractions. The lawyer whose office got trashed, no one really knows if he cleaned his degrees or just replaced them with the new poop-free ones. As for Todd, his name is now just a footnote in one of the most bizarre crime sprees in recent history. And with his track record, it's only a matter of time before he resurfaces again. When William Christopher Todd stepped off that Greyhound bus in Nashville, no one could have predicted the madness that would unfold over the next 9 hours. It wasn't just a crime spree, it was a full-blown chaotic reality-breaking mess that left the city scrambling to make sense of what had just happened. A haunted house burned to the ground, random bar patrons tased and pistol-whipped, multiple carjackings, a lawyer's office desecrated in a way no one should ever have to witness. And finally, the image of Todd, hiding in a water tank with just his nose poking out, as if that was somehow going to work. In the end, Todd's rampage was cut short, but his story still lingers, a mix of absurdity, crime, and sheer unpredictability. Was he inspired by Grand Theft Auto? Was he just wired for destruction? Or was he simply a man who saw an opportunity for chaos and ran with it? Whatever the reason, his one-night Nashville rampage remains one of the strangest, most ridiculous crime sprees ever committed. And if history tells us anything, this probably wasn't the last we'll hear of William Christopher Todd.